Welcome to cast number 2. This one is going to be Paradox vs. StephennJF. I've never played directly against Steven, but I've seen some replays of him, and I know he's quite good. I have played against Paradox, and he's definitely quite good, so this should be a very interesting replay. We see a Grenadier start from Paradox, and Pyo's heading straight north. Likewise, from Steven, we see a Conscript start, and some Engineers heading straight south. Conscript's heading north, possibly to go straight for the fuel, or maybe to go towards the middle victory points, although it would probably be a little premature for that. Paradox is going for the strategic point rather than the vehicle point, understandably. It's not much use at this point in the game. Grenadiers heading south. In fact, if we turn off the fog of war, we see an almost perfect mirror in their strategies. General infantry heading across the river, and repair units heading to capture. Of course, the Grenadiers are lagging behind just a little bit because of the time in building the infantry company, but it goes up so fast it's almost negligible. Look at this. It's as if the same person were playing on both sides. Incredible. Almost identical unit layout. I guess that's just what the symmetry of this map has you do. Alright, so we actually see that these conscripts are heading now down towards the strategic point over here, whereas these Grenadiers are going to grab this victory point. And we see a third Grenadier squad coming out for Paradox, and Steven, of course, is also getting a third squad of conscripts. He was a little slow, though, on queuing that one. So it looks like Paradox is going to have his fielded before Paradox can even have his, or Steven can even have his third squad of conscripts out. And that's really crazy to me, actually, that it is even possible for Grenadier spam to be able to keep up with conscript spam. I really always thought the entire point of conscript spam was to be out-spammable, but it seems that Gren spam and conscript spam go at pretty much the exact same speed. They cost the same manpower. Grenadier building goes up so fast that it makes almost no difference and costs so little. And they're very similar in combat strength. It really comes right down to how you utilize them. One could always beat the other. It just depends on cover and positioning and so many other factors. And we see the very first engagement. These two Gren squads come together and pinch this conscript squad. It has to oorah out of there to try and avoid taking serious damage. Rather than go anywhere, he just gets behind this wall, but that's not going to accomplish much with these two squads closing in. They're already right there. They go around the wall too. Meanwhile, we've got some Grenadiers chasing off the Engineers that are capping down here, so that's not going to be an engagement he can win. Meanwhile, we've got conscripts up here fighting some Pyos, so we've got 3 engagements happening on 3 separate fronts all simultaneously in the very first 3 minutes of the game. These conscripts, the Grenadiers get an LMG just in time, and they take out that conscript squad before it can retreat. Meanwhile, they are down to 2 guys, but they get away no problem. That's going to be problematic. Meanwhile, these Engineers still haven't retreated, and they're taking heavy damage, and they're dead as well. So that's 2 squads down right off the bat. That's going to be tough for Steven to come back from. That's really going to cripple him. Meanwhile, he's got conscripts dealing with some Pyos, and in the middle, he's still trying to win this engagement. He's got conscripts versus Grenadiers. The Pyos have retreated. It looks like Paradox is really on his game. He's not making the same mistakes as Steven here, and he's keeping his units alive, so that's really important. Meanwhile, these Grenadiers, though, are taking some pretty heavy damage, and they're going to need to get out of there. There's a flamethrower coming up, and indeed he retreats, but he's got another squad over here moving into support. And, of course, he's now going to take the entire bottom unopposed. Absolutely nothing down here that Steven can field to counter that. These guys have at least gotten a little bit of veterancy. Steven moves some flamethrowers into some cover, trying to take advantage of the surroundings to maximize his efficiency here. But the Grenadiers get out of range of the flamethrower, move over here to try and flank these conscripts, which are just barely hanging on, but he keeps on moving around. He can't make up his mind on what he's trying to do, and they're so closely bunched, and that could be a very good burst from flamethrower. Not that good, actually. Oh, that one was good, though, and that almost takes out that whole squad. That was a close one. Probably shouldn't have been messing around so dangerously in the first place. He could have lost that full squad, but he got away clean, so he has yet to lose any full units, and he is doing a good job taking the entire south, which is largely undefended. Steven sent only an Engineer squad down there, and that Engineer squad did not live to see the end of the day. Looks like we've seen a demolition charge get planted on this watchtower. That's something I've never seen before. It could be interesting how that plays out, although maybe a mistake because we see only general infantry, no machine guns or anything else that's likely to get inside. But if anything, oh, look at that! A full squad burned alive by the flamethrower. Again, if anything does get inside of that watchtower, it could spell disaster because there is a demolition charge planted right on there. Of course, in this, unlike in the first game, you have to maintain visibility on your demolition charge to be able to detonate it, which I think is very interesting. So, it's going to be interesting to see how that gets utilized. Stephen has 3 conscript squads and 2 NG squads, which means he had, at one point, 3 NG squads and 4 conscript squads, because he lost 1 of each. So he's very heavy into his low-tech units right now, manpower-wise. See some flamethrowers moving up to fight these. He's getting up his support weapon Campania, reinforcing a little bit in the base. Meanwhile, he's trying to make some headway up north, but it's not going to be easy with that grenade coming in on those flamethrowers. Almost kills that full squad. Meanwhile, there's almost nothing that's going to be able to do against that LMG and 2 Gren squads over there. They've got a little bit of veterancy too, which Vet 1 on a Gren squad gives them just first aid, actually, which is not going to make some big difference. But still, it's too much for 1 conscript squad to handle. And already we see the half-track on the field. Paradox is very quick with his tech. In fact, he still has another 85 fuel even after buying that half-track. That is incredible, and of course that is because of this excellent map domination down south. Totally unopposed, just that 1 Gren squad taking the whole map, and the fuel comes pouring in. The rivers of fuel flow. Not to mention we see he's got a half-track which probably wants that flame projectors upgraded, and we have 74 munitions coming in. That is 74 munitions. Look at that. 1, 2, 3 munitions points plus the munitions OP. He probably felt that he could justify that purchase based on how well the first few engagements have going. He's taken out full squads. He's had a very strong start. Definitely going to help him out in the near future. If he gets flame projectors on that half-track, there's no telling if Steven's going to be ready. If we take a look at Steven's tech, we see that he's only got 13 fuel coming in right now due to this just abysmal map control. However, it seems that while he did hold on to the north fuel, he was able to trickle in just enough to get his Tank of E battalion up. And that's because he has not gotten any other of these upgrades for his conscripts. He's going straight for fast tech. Maybe a questionable decision, maybe not. We'll see how that turns out. He's got just enough fuel for a half-track, or if he holds out for about 1 minute, he's going to have enough for a T-70. And he's aware that there's a half-track on the field. Could have flame projectors any second. He has no solution for it yet, so we're going to see what he chooses to do with that. He still hasn't chosen a commander. He may go with guard rifles for a quick and dirty solution to that half-track. That's always the one option. We've got some pioneers standing right on that demolition charge, but he loses visibility as the point is decapped. Using a 90 munition ability on 1 Pio squad probably would not be justified, so he bides his time, seeing if we can get a little more bang for our buck out of that one. Meanwhile, we see some Grenadiers over here. They're trying to make something happen, but he gets too greedy. He wants to do some damage, but look at that. They are killed almost immediately. They just keep dropping prone. One of the cool things about the flamethrower is that units attacked with it will drop prone before they start attacking, so that buys you a little time after the first burst. And with 2 flamethrowers on a unit, it looks like apparently it's possible for you to take the whole squad out without sustaining a single shot. So that was a good play. He finally managed to take out a full squad. Although I guess he managed to kill a full squad with a flamethrower up here earlier as well. Looks like we've got something capturing over here. Paradox is moving up with a Pio squad, and he's keeping his half-track somewhat at bay. And over here we've got Grenadiers warming themselves by a fire. And some Panzer Grenadiers moving down. It looks like he's going to have a coordinated assault with the help of his newly upgraded flame half-track. It's going to be coming down. If we look over at Steven, we see that indeed he doesn't have a solution. He's got a T-70 on the field. It's going to be heading for exactly the same location. He sees the half-track. Oh, he knows exactly where he needs to send that. Meanwhile, he's sending some engineers to go capture up top. This Paradox's flame half-track is going to have flame projector upgrade any second. It's almost complete. And there's the T-70. He could still cancel it if he chose to. He still has time to save his 120 munitions. He really needs to cancel that upgrade. There's no way his half-track is going to survive this. It's dead for sure, but he lets it complete. And now the half-track is dead. There's no way it can escape. And excellent timing on the T-70. Shows up just in the nick of time. Does devastating blow. Paradox was having a great start, but now he loses a full Gren squad and a half-track. Wow, that really turns things around. Paradox was doing great, but in the blink of an eye, a T-70 turns the whole tide of the game. Now it's going to be a whole new dynamic on the battlefield as the T-70 chases down the units. This should have been what the flame half-track was going to be able to do, but the T-70 came out just a hair too soon. What a shame. Those Panzer Grenadiers bob and weave. They all make it out with just some cuts and bruises. Meanwhile, units moving up in the center, relatively unopposed now that the T-70 has free reign. Absolutely no solution to it yet on the field. We could see some Panzerfaust damaging its engine. We've got the medic bunker up here in the base to heal the Panzer Grenadiers. And it looks like we have the support armor core and a P4 medium tank is on the way to help support against the T-70 threat. So that is going to be a very valuable asset to Paradox as he tries to retake the map here. Meanwhile, Steven, while he has free reign, has opted to send his T-70 up towards the middle to support and spread his units all over the map, trying to take back his much-needed territory. He's had a very rough start. He really needs to get some ground back. And he doesn't want to engage these LMG-42 Grens without cover, so he runs back to this truck. We see some flamethrowers coming up to flank some lone capping Pios over here, and some Grenadiers trying to make something happen over here, but there's a T-70 over here. They're powerless to do anything, and that was a pretty strong shot against those Pios, but fortunately they don't retreat across the bridge. They cut across this ice, and it looks like they're going to get away. Meanwhile, we've got an engagement over here. The Grenadiers have moved up onto the conscripts defending the truck. None of them are standing in the capture zone, so he is in fact managing to capture this territory. This one's going for a grenade. Here it comes. Perfectly dodged, though. He saw it coming. He was clearly paying attention. Perfectly dodged. Took almost no damage from that. Gets right back into the green cover. Meanwhile, here's the P4 up in the middle. Some flamethrowers trying to test the waters. Get more than they bargained for, and the LMG Grens take him out completely. Meanwhile, a full squad up top is eliminated. I believe that was Pio squad, although I missed it. P4 doesn't like the radio chatter he's hearing and decides to come support the unit that just lost contact. Meanwhile, we've got some engineers moving into green cover over here, trying to make something happen. It looks like down south this truck has been destroyed and is littered with corpses. I can only assume that Paradox fired off another grenade, although he's opting to retreat rather than continue capping. Interesting. Over here we've got another grenade going off, and they're perfectly bunched, but they retreat just in time and manage to survive. Oh no, and that T-70 shows up at the worst possible time on these double vet squad. Look at that. Takes them out. Oh, the irony. If he had not retreated them and they had been down here capping, who knows what might have happened. That T-70 may have found them, maybe not, but maybe the P4 could have caught up in time to save them. P4 has now failed to save the lives of 2 full infantry squads as the T-70 wreaks havoc amongst the Ostheer forces. He is out for retribution. He's out for justice. He's trying to track him down in this blizzard. Can barely see anything. We see some T-70 tracks. It's hard to tell what is T-70 tracks and what is just decoration, though. There's tracks going everywhere. He's lost the trail. Doesn't know where it went. Meanwhile, the T-70 is smugly almost all the way back at base. It's racked up 9 kills. It's almost vet 2. Up here we see some conscripts running into a bundled grenade. Waste of a bundled grenade, though. Almost no damage. Also not necessary. Panzer Grenadiers could easily kill a conscript squad without the use of a grenade. Blatant waste of munitions, although if we look at the resource count, we see he's got 86 and still 52 coming in, so he can probably afford to be a little liberal with his munitions use. We see a one-man squad, and it fires 0 bullets. Oh, there he goes. Capturing over here. P4 gives up the search for the T-70, decides it's better to just get back behind behind his friendly lines. He doesn't want to risk sending that tank in unsupported. It can be a disaster to send a tank in unsupported, especially if it gets abandoned and you give the enemy a free tank. That can end the game. End the game right there. No coordinated pushes from Paradox at this moment. He is instead spreading all of his forces all over the map, trying to take back some ground, splitting the map right down the middle, although Paradox has the advantage in victory points right now and territory in general. He's got the watch post. He has really good visibility, even during a blizzard of what's coming. He sees that the enemy has a ZIS AT gun coming, and that's going to be interesting for his P4. We'll see how that plays out, although with the bushes, it is also interesting to note that it's a blizzard, and therefore Steven can barely see anything. T-70 gives him a little bit of visibility, but he certainly can't see that guard post. Meanwhile, Paradox is able to see all kinds of things happening in the middle of the snow. We see some Grenadiers coming up. They've got an LMG-42, but they really need to get into close range into that fire to avoid freezing to death. The blizzard passes, and now the visibility is a little better. T-70 does a power slide across the ice. Steven is now able to see just up to the watch post, but he still has no visibility on that P4. Meanwhile, down here, looks like the conscripts have chased off the Grenadiers somehow, despite the LMG. He opted to retreat. He probably could have won that. Then again, he must have heard the engine revving up from the T-70 over here and didn't want to risk losing another lone squad capping. That's really what the T-70 is for, is to punish those lone squads capping so far away from help. And here we go. It looks like we've got the P4 over here. Paradox is moving some Panzer Grenadiers in to support. And there goes the demolition charge. Oh! What was that? I think that was a bundled grenade. A bundled grenade on that conscript squad completely destroys it. Entire squad down. And yet a demo charge that has been planted and waiting for the entire game does nothing. It only killed 2 Panzer Grenadiers, and they got away clean, killing an entire squad. And we see a light artillery barrage coming in on this grouping of units. We see this is on the ice. It's in a bad situation. A stray hit could also sink the T-70. Who knows what will happen to these conscripts if they're not careful. It's not even turned towards the Panzer. Oh no! And there it goes. It sinks into the ice. The T-70 survives, but the AT gun meets an early demise in a watery grave as they flail for their lives and hypothermia claims them. However, this has created a bit of an impromptu obstacle for this P4, and he can't seem to chase down that T-70, which continues to just pester him. Although it still only has 9 kills, but it's been doing more damage and is dangerously close to Vet 2, at which point it will be even more of a pain. Vet 1 only gives it the ability to cap, whereas Vet 2 gives it better damage and better defenses, making it even more annoying than it already is. Meanwhile, we've got some conscripts heading up top to cap. We've got some shock troops heading toward the victory point over here to cap. We see, of course, that he's gone shock motor tactics. He's got enough for a flamethrower tank. Doesn't look like he's going to go for it, though. He's just spending some manpower on reinforcing squads. In fact, he has 238 fuel. Look at that fuel. More than enough for a flamethrower tank. In fact, if he holds out for just a little longer, he'll almost have enough for an IS-2. That would be absolutely incredible. You don't see an IS-2 very often in 1v1, that's for sure. Especially not at the 20-minute mark. He has skipped everything except for one T-70, so if you think about it, no upgrades here except for this, which costs no fuel. He's built the bare minimum in tech. He's got his support weapon companion on the tank of V for 1 T-70, no T-34s, no half-tracks. All of his fuel has been poured into this stockpile. It looks like, unless he is just floating resources carelessly, it looks like he is in fact going for an IS-2, so that could be very interesting. He's going to have that very early. And if anything, Paradox should be punishing him for such resource float. He is floating hundreds of fuel, and yet Paradox is not able to keep up. Unbelievable. He has a P4 on the field, yet he is getting pushed around by one Vet 2 T-70, although we see that he has another Panzer IV coming out. The punishment could begin as the tanks start rolling out. He's also got 154 fuel. He could get another P4 right now if he wanted, or an Oswind, or a Stug, or whatever it is. So we'll see what kind of tech decisions he makes. He loses track of the T-70 and decides to go the chase. But there it is. It comes back, and he's got his rear armor turned down. He's parked on the ice. Look at this ice crumbling away. He could sink into the ice to a T-70 if he's not careful. He should really keep moving. Look at this. Oh my goodness. That Panzer IV came within an inch of sinking to its doom to a T-70 and an AT grenade. That would have been just tragic. Fortunately, it makes it out just in time, with minor damage and in need of some engine repairs.
The sector has been cut off. Enemy forces are securing our territory. This is now German territory.
And suddenly the battlefield is quiet. It looks like Stephen is trying to get his bearings and decide what to do about the new tank threat. His Zis is frozen beneath the ice. The only thing he has that can even damage P4 is a T-70, and it certainly can't take on two. It can barely take on one in the best of situations. However, it's doing a wonderful job of harassing. Paradox is being overly cautious. He doesn't want to charge in with his tanks yet. He doesn't know if the enemy has a camouflage Zis waiting. He doesn't want to get caught in a bad situation. He's being a little overly conservative in my opinion. If you look, Steven has no AT whatsoever. Except for now, indeed, he has spent the 300 fuel, and look at this, he has an IS-2 coming into the battlefield at the 23-minute mark. We have an IS-2 in a 1v1 game, no other tech except for a T-70. That's going to be very interesting, and look at this, a P4 finally decides to make the charge at the worst moment. Look at the damage from the first shell, almost a third of the P4's health. It's backing off a little, though. It doesn't want to get engine damage from a Panzerfaust. It's understandable. Grenade going in, but the grenade is a bit of an overshoot. But they take a heavy damage from an IS-2 shell. They choose to retreat. He's trying to chase down this P4, but he can't see him in the fog. He has to try and chase him across the ice if he wants to capitalize on his early shock value of getting such a potent unit so early in the game. And there it is. He sees it parked off in the distance. He can just barely see it. He's advancing. He wants to take advantage of his opponents not being ready for this. He's choosing to flank across the ice, going across the side, trying to cut it off. He's got a conscript squad moving up over here. He's going to try and damage the engine with an AT grenade. Can he do it? He's throwing the AT grenade. And there's the damaged engine. The P4 is down to half health. The IS-2 crashes through the trees with no regard. Coming up, the P4 looks like it's got its rear armor turned. The tank driver can barely see through all of this snow and ice and sleet. Can he chase it down? He's moving at a crawl. Meanwhile, over in the center victory point, we've got a conscript squad being attacked by some grenadiers. T-70 moving up to support. There's a Panzerschreck squad, and we've also got the P4 over here. It looks like the IS-2 has found the P4, and it's on ice. It's treading. It can't get traction. Uses Blitzkrieg to try and escape. And there it is, sinks to the bottom of the river. The IS-2 comes too soon. The enemy is not ready and not in position. Rear armor, facing the wrong way the entire time, trying to escape in a blizzard, trying to take advantage of the low sight lines, but just can't escape tracking it down through the trees and killed on the river. So the IS-2 is off to a good start, but even with such a great entrance, very little veterancy gained from that. It still has a long way to go to become a really effective combat unit in the later stages of the game, so we'll see how that happens. Meanwhile, we've got units retreating. There was another P4 over here they couldn't quite handle.
All units are here. Your predecessor died a hero.
Oh, Panzerschreck squad moving up, getting some good shots on the IS-2. You certainly can't miss it. It's huge. It's not too hard to maneuver in this terrain, though, because the IS-2 fortunately can run right over trees. However, he's backing himself into a bit of a corner over here. He can't go up this cliff, that's for sure. And he's gonna, oh, the grenade going out. Oh, but it's an overshoot, and the Panzerschrecks keep on coming in. They keep on coming in, and it looks like the Panzer IV is coming up to support as well. He needs to get his IS-2 out of there. There's no way he's going to be able to win this fight. They keep on chipping away. The Panzer Grenadiers are at triple vet. They're going to be doing some heavy damage. Oh, artillery coming in as well. It looks like Paradox has as well got an artillery piece firing away, trying to chip away at this IS-2. It's down to about an eighth of its health. The Panzer IV is moving up to advance. There's some engineers coming up to repair it. Maybe they can out-repair the damage, but probably not with these triple vet. And there it goes, the Panzer IV. Look at the veterancy on that. It barely hits the field, and it's already almost vet 1. Takes out an IS-2 with supporting help from triple vet Panzer Grenadiers. What a good use of those Panzerschrecks. IS-2 was simply not supported by enough. There were some shock troops, but it was not enough. If only that grenade had been a little more accurately thrown, who knows what might have happened. He needed those Panzerschreck squads to die. They simply would not die. And a P4 takes out an IS-2. What a tragedy. That IS-2 could have been a real force. A real force for the Soviet Union. Could have been a hero. But was not supported quite well enough, and it got chipped away. We've got a light artillery barrage coming in on this Maxim gun. Might be a bit of a waste of munitions. If we look at Paradox, he's got 110 right now. Perhaps not. He still has 69 coming in. Look at this great map control of the munitions. He definitely can afford to just throw munitions away without regard. Unfortunately, that ability looks to have done 0 damage. Meanwhile, we see that Paradox has a Pyro squad just capturing the entire bottom, unopposed. Steven is too busy trying to focus on more immediate threats. He's not able to spread himself out. He spent a huge investment on an IS-2, which died, and therefore a lot of his manpower was tied up in that tank. We've got artillery from that artillery piece coming in. Maxim is trying to hold the enemy at bay, but there's not much it can do against a P4, although he brings in another, it looks like an incendiary barrage. And the timing couldn't be better, as he's got a Gren squad moving up and a Panzer Grenadier squad behind. Pretty heavy damage on those. They're forced to retreat, and the engine cannot get repaired. The Maxim does a good job of holding things off just long enough to prevent repairs to that tank. Meanwhile, it looks like Steven's next solution to the Panzer IV still hasn't hit the field. He has no ZIS, he has no tanks, he has no technology of any kind. He's got 150 fuel. He could get a T-34, he could probably get a ZIS. But with that much fuel float, one has to think that if he tried an IS-2 first, he might try it again. He might go for a second one. He's saving up a lot of fuel. He hasn't purchased any other tanks. He could get a flame tank, but has opted not to. Don't blame him either with the P4 on the field. He needs to find a way to deal with that. So maybe we will see a second IS-2 hitting the field. Shock troops moving up towards the middle, and we've got some good map coverage going into the 30-minute mark. We've got conscripts headed up toward the south, spreading out well along the bottom. It looks like Paradox is withdrawn toward the center to try and get his bearings and focus more on the victory points. Shock troops moving up on these Grenadiers. This is a really good case study, actually, for watching why should you buy shock troops. This is a good 1v1. Oh no, but the Panzer IV comes up and cheats. But still, you can see what great damage that these shock troops are doing, taking very little from the Grenadiers. They're really very good in their particular role, which is as an anti-infantry, close range, close quarter unit.
Grenadier squad
Unfortunately, their weakness is also being shown here. They simply have no answer for tanks. Got an artillery barrage coming in, but it looks like the shock troops have safely cleared its area of effect. They're doing a good job of hunting down squads and chasing them down. Rather than chase off these shock troops, he's decided to sit tight and get that engine repaired first. Nothing worse than putting yourself in harm's way when you have engine damage. He's not going to repeat his mistake from last time where his engine damage cost him a tank that's now frozen beneath the river. More shock troops moving up here. They can't hurt the P4, but he does see eight closely bunched Pioneers, but they dodged the grenade perfectly. Oh, but meanwhile, Zis has finally been fielded, and he's artillery barraging, and he almost manages to take out a full squad, plus another squad. That could have ended very poorly. Oh, and an artillery barrage almost takes out that full squad of shock troops. So artillery from both sides, hammering the infantry, and the tank still has not managed to get its engine repaired, so it must wait for further support from the Pioneers. Further delaying, further stalling. Paradox must be getting very frustrated with this situation. There is nothing but a Zis defending. It's moving up, trying to get aggressive, just outside of Steven's range here. He's trying to spot for it with shock troops, and look at this, a smoke grenade comes out. He's trying to block his vision, but the AI on the P4 automatically starts driving towards them to try and find them. It finally spots them around the smoke, but it looks like the Zis is able to see it from afar. It's got a perfect angle of fire over here. Can't quite hit the shock troops with the smoke, and yet the Zis continues to fire away. Although it looks like the Zis will not continue its pursuit. The shock troops are now going to have to look out for these Panzer Grenadiers moving up to attack. Meanwhile, up north, we see some artillery coming in on some Vet 3 conscripts over here. They better pay attention or they're going to get hit by some pretty strong artillery. They need to watch out for what's happening to them. The next hit could spell disaster, but it doesn't. Rifle grenade misses and they make it away clean.
Ready. Our territory is falling into enemy hands.
Looks like he's set up a bare bones skeleton crew defense. He's got a Maxim and has this. Trying to hold back the Axis. Trying to delay. Trying to take up more time. Indeed, we see 290 fuel, 560 manpower. We can only be left to assume that another IS-2 is going to be fielded in the very near future. He's trying to delay, buy time, hold onto the map until he can get that heavy tank out onto the field. We see that Paradox has only one Panzer IV and no other forms of hard AT. His Panzerschreck squad is long since dead. That triple vet Panzerschreck squad that managed to take out an IS-2 has fallen. What a shame. So indeed an IS-2 could hit the field and have just as heavy-handed an impact as the first one, although there is a Vet 1 P4 waiting. But Vet 1 on a P4, of course, gives blitzkrieg and not much else, so there's not too much to worry about there. He needs to pay attention to that Gren squad or he won't notice that it is not going to make it.
We are suffering losses.
Died to a conscript squad. Meanwhile, some Panzer Grenadiers going for the watch posts have already sustained heavy losses.
The troops are freezing to death.
But there's nothing here to stop him except for a mortar and a Zis. Meanwhile, we've got conscripts taking the whole bottom unopposed. This artillery piece has actually only got 4 kills despite some well-placed barrages. It's having trouble closing the deal on anything. It really needs to aim those more carefully. I've actually noticed on mortars that if you fire them during a blizzard, their barrage ability is wildly inaccurate and flies all over the place. I'm not sure if the same is true of artillery piece. I would imagine it's somewhat less true because an artillery shell would be buffeted by the wind to a slightly lesser effect. But I would imagine that firing it in a blizzard also reduces its accuracy somewhat. So you can probably maximize its effectiveness by firing it, trying to time it such that it fires mostly not in a blizzard. That being said, it spends most of its time firing. You really need to be on the ball with this thing because the cooldown actually resets very shortly after it finishes firing its initial barrage. You can keep it firing at almost all times. It fires more than 50% of the time if you are quick. You need to put on a control group and just keep on hitting barrage, barrage, barrage. And it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. Oh, he lost a retreating squad to some flanking shock troops over there, though. That's a shame. And what a surprise. It looks like we do indeed have another IS-2 on the field. Stephen has made the investment. He thinks he can make something happen with it. And now maybe finally there will be less stalling and more pushing from both sides. You finally see that this tank has been fully repaired as well. One of these players needs to commit to making a push. It looks like Stephen is in a slightly better position. He's got 2 of the 3 victory points. Meanwhile, he's actually got conscripts oorahing towards the enemy tank. Oh, it turns its rear armor towards the IS-2, and it gets AT grenaded. Where have I seen this situation before? Heavy damage from the very first shot. Oh no, this is exactly what we have seen before. The exact same situation. Oh, we haven't learned from our mistakes at all. Second shot, heavy damage. Panzer IV does nothing, completely deflected, no problem. Although, look at it, it's very close to Vet 2. It's Vet 2 from that damage. And look at that, being Vet 2. Vet 2 gives it significantly reduced damage taken. It's getting shot right in the rear by this IS-2, and look at the difference that makes. That would be dead in a half by now if it were still Vet 1. That is incredible. It needs to chase that down, or that's going to be a serious problem later. He's scared low. He doesn't want to take damage from anything in here, but little does he know, Paradox has nothing. He has nothing that can stop it. Only Pyos and standard Panzergrens, but he's too afraid. He doesn't want to lose this IS-2, but he's letting this Panzer IV get away. It's a mistake. He needs to charge right now. Oh, but now he's too late. Look at this. The Panzer Grenadier squad has Panzerschrecks. He could have killed this P4 by now. He needs to kill it. He needs to kill it. He needs to push in and take advantage now while he can, or that's going to be a Vet 2 Panzer IV. A Vet 2 Panzer IV that takes hardly any damage even when shot in the rear. Oh no, he's just giving up. Oh, here it goes. It looks like he's changed his mind. Although he's advancing in reverse, which may not be the best idea. But he's advancing in reverse towards it, and it's already back up to half health. He's trying to reposition himself, reorient himself a little bit. He realizes he's not driven quite correctly. He's twisting around. The turret's got to figure it out, but the Pioneers are repairing so fast. Oh, but a full squad is obliterated by that shell. But now the Panzer Grenadiers have moved up. Oh, and the shell misses. That could have helped a lot if that had hit, but it misses. He's got the machine gun upgrade, but it's not enough to chase them off. He goes with an incendiary barrage to try and discourage any further repairs. Meanwhile, we see that a half-track is down here trying to fight off some Panzer Grenadiers, and at the same time, we've got some guys fighting a conscript squad. Looks like they're both going to retreat. Neither of them thought they could win that fight, which is amusing. And then, meanwhile, up here, the IS-2 just couldn't close the deal. Couldn't close the deal, and now we're in this situation where we have a double Vet P4 and a Panzerschreck squad, and now we don't know what's going to happen. Looks like this has been upgraded with the anti-air upgrade. It's going to be able to successfully chase those off. Unbelievable that this has survived. Just a moment ago, it was floundering in the snow with its rear towards an IS-2 and engine damage. And yet the IS-2 is just doing its little dance over here. Afraid of what was around the corner, when little did he know there was nothing. He could have won the game. The game would be over right now. There would be no P4. He probably could have mopped up that Shrek squad. What a tragedy for the Soviet Union. If only that tank commander had been more bold. He feared his commanding officer's wrath for losing his tank, but he could have been a hero. He could have won the day. Now there's a double vet, fully repaired Panzer IV on the field with armor skirts. And a driver that's out for revenge, out for justice, for the Ostheer. He will not let this stand. He's ready to exact his vengeance upon this foolish IS-2 driver. And there it is, waiting. Look at that. First shot does nothing, whereas Panzer IV's first shot does incredible damage. Panzerschreck's going in. The IS-2 is already down to a third health. Battle has just begun. Decent shot versus the IS-2, but Another one goes off again against it, and it's almost dead. This Zis is not even turning to face this Panzer IV, and it's taken down. Oh no. Meanwhile, we see that this is down to a sliver of health, although it has hit Veteran C1. Meanwhile, we've got artillery coming in over here. And the Axis cannot be stopped. They are overwhelming the enemy with superior force. Turning its rear. Oh no, it's not been driven properly. A stray Panzerschreck could spell the end of this IS-2. Bundle grenade on that Maxim. And that's the end of that. Meanwhile, this P4 is on the warpath. It's not done yet. Moves up to this conscript squad and half-track over here. It looks like the IS-2 is going for a full retreat. The conscripts make the right choice and decide to damage the engine with an AT grenade to stop its deadly assault. And now we are in a bad situation. This IS-2 has taken heavy damage. Unbelievable. Look at the difference in damage. The IS-2 cannot penetrate the double vet Panzer IV's frontal armor, and yet the Panzer IV tears this thing to shreds with the help of the Panzerschreck. Great use of combined arms, great use of a coordinated push, even with MGs trying to slow them down. It's not enough. It's just an overwhelming burst of Ostheer forces coming straight through the choke point. There's nothing the Soviets can do. The IS-2 is not enough. He needs more. His Zis gun was poorly positioned for that. It was easily flanked. If it had been further in the back, he may have been able to chip away at that P4, but it was not even faced correctly for a lot of that fight. Looks like we're seeing some more shock troops coming up, freshly reinforced. They're going to try and chase off this Panzerschreck squad, maybe open up the Panzer IV for attack if it doesn't have Panzerschreck support. Meanwhile, we've got some conscripts capturing along the south, and these fresh pioneers coming up to repair probably are cut off, and they are forced to retreat and reinforce again. That's a good move by those conscripts, isolating this tank on the front lines without repairs and without help. Nothing left here but this heavily wounded squad of pioneers. Now there's only 2 men left, barely surviving that grenade. Taking heavy fire, their friends have just died in front of their very eyes to shrapnel from a frag grenade. And yet they press on. They must repair that engine. Nothing else matters. And they succeed in their mission. Medals all around. They get to go home, finally. They retreat from the wind and the rain and the bullets. Meanwhile, shock troops are moving up onto this victory point, and it looks like they could cut off this retreating pioneer squad after their valiant efforts. Oh, one of them dies. But one of them makes it away, and these 2 grenadiers should be fine with their double vet armor. It looks like we are again in this same situation. IS-2 boldly charging in against a triple vet Panzer IV with its rear armor faced right towards it. Look at the damage on its frontal armor. Unbelievable. And then it tilts just a little bit. Not the best positioning. Look at this damage disparity. The Panzer IV is unloading heavy damage on the IS-2. Ooh, that shot is deflected. Still, the IS-2 is powerless to damage this P4. It is too strong. He tries to sink it with a grenade, but it's not enough. That could have been a game changer if that had worked. And the IS-2 almost sinks it. Look at the size of that. Look at the size of that blast, but it's not enough. Not quite enough. It's too shallow. The dirt's right there. Almost. Some shots bouncing, some shots missing. Neither tank seems to be able to connect. Although, look at this. We've got the Panzerschrecks back up to support and 2 P4s over here. This could be a mistake charging that IS-2. And look at the damage from that volley. Oh no, and the artillery barrage in the back takes it out. Oh, and these engineers cannot repair it, and that's a second IS-2 lost to a Vet 3 Panzerschreck squad, although most of them die in the Inferno. And suddenly the battlefield is quiet yet again. Some Panzer Grenadiers take the watch post and warm themselves in the flames of the smoky remains of the enemy tank. And they destroy a Maxim gun. Or at least try to. Meanwhile, a half-track is scouting ahead, and some pioneers are heading down south. The commander of this Panzer IV is embracing sweet, sweet victory. He's now responsible for killing an IS-2 and 33 other infantry. He's been decorated with the Iron Cross for his valiant efforts.
Ready for orders.
Another P4 has been called in to learn from the master's technique. He's
Enemy forces are
training under
securing
the
our
great
territory.
P4 commander of the Pripyat winter battlefield. Looks like we see some movement. Stephen is now fielding, despite his losses of the tanks, a decent-sized infantry army. Only one Zis to deal with 2 P4s, though. But fortunately, we see 2 triple-vet squads of conscripts and some decently vetted shock troops. So, he should be able to maintain okay map control. And it looks like he has purchased another IS-2. Unbelievable. He has managed to purchase 3 IS-2s. It's the 46-minute mark. That is the only heavy tank he has purchased this game, is the IS-2. Thanks to his excellent ability to stall and hold map control. It hits the field hard, chasing off some grenadiers, but the Panzer IV is responding kind of. Look at the damage. Look at that incredible damage from the very first set of shells. 2 shots and it's already below half. And the Vet 3 Panzerschreck squad is already on its way up. It tries to face its frontal armor to protect it, but it takes heavy damage. Oh no, and it's floundering in some trees, and it lasts only seconds. This commander is now skilled and experienced in the destruction of IS-2s. He knows all their weaknesses and takes them out in moments. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The IS-2, a huge investment of resources, and it is taken out in a matter of moments. It looks like this is the end. There's no way Paradox can fail now with these unstoppable tanks. They have minor engine damage, but he's playing smart. He's holding back. He knows all he has to do is hold it, and there it goes. There it goes. Stephen concedes the game. And that's the end. Paradox knows that all he has to do is hold on to these victory points. He's got a tank that even an IS-2 cannot stand up against. A Vet 3 Panzer IV. Look at that. Plus his Vet 3 Panzerschreck squad. So powerful. So hard to stop. There was a point in this game when an IS-2 was chasing a heavily wounded, engine-damaged, rear-facing P4 around this little corner. Had nothing left. The IS-2 was ready to end the game, ready to win it for Joseph Stalin. And just didn't happen that way. Just that crucial moment totally altered the game, totally changed the way things happened. And just look at the difference that veterancy makes. This is definitely a case study for veterancy. It's incredible. It's incredible the difference it makes. Look at that. Veterancy 1, it didn't stand a chance against that IS-2. It was getting torn to shreds. Suddenly, Veterancy 2 puts on the armor skirts. It can be facing rear toward an IS-2 and still survive. Still be out-repaired by 2 Pio squads. And still inflict heavy damage on all shots that penetrate that IS-2. And Vet 3 only exacerbates things, just causes that damage to go through the roof. As we saw before, that IS-2 was down to 1/3 health from 2 shots, and I'm willing to bet over half of that damage was from this one tank. Didn't quite see it super clearly. Could have been a stray Panzerschreck in there, or maybe the shot from the other P4 does more than I'm accounting for. But still, the veterancy on that won this game. Let that be a lesson to you. Preserve your tank. Preserve your tanks. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. You need that veterancy. It's so crucial. What an interesting game. 3 IS-2s. Very fun to watch. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you watch the next one.